The salvage beacon's shrill cry cut through the hum of Zara Kane's modified freighter like a rusty knife through silence. She'd been drifting through the outer rim of the Helix Nebula for 3 standard days, hunting for anything worth more than the fuel it would cost to haul it back to civilization. So far, her efforts had netted her exactly 1 broken navigation buoy and a headache that felt like it had its own gravitational field. Well, Sass chirped from the ship's speakers, its synthetic voice dripping with the kind of enthusiasm that usually preceded expensive mistakes. Looks like we've got ourselves a genuine derelict, Captain. And by genuine, I mean it's either a gold mine or about to explode in our faces. Statistically speaking, it's usually the exploding part. Zara pushed herself away from the pilot's console, her boots magnetic clamping to the deck plates with soft metallic clicks. Through the reinforced viewport, she could make out the silhouette of a vessel that definitely hadn't come from any human shipyard. Its hull curved in organic swoops that reminded her uncomfortably of whale bones, and whatever metal it was built from seemed to shimmer with an oily rainbow sheen even in the nebula's dim light. Run a deep scan, Sass. And try to keep the commentary to a minimum until we know if it's going to vaporize us. Oh, where's the fun in that? But the AI complied, and Zara felt the subtle vibration through the deck as the scanner arrays deployed. Interesting. The hull composition is, well, it's not in any of my databases. Which, considering I have the collective knowledge of 17 different spacefaring civilizations stored in my rather impressive memory banks, is saying something. Zara pulled up the sensor display on her tablet, squinting at the readings. The ship was roughly corvette-sized, maybe 200 meters from nose to tail, but its energy signature was all wrong. Most derelicts were cold and dead, their power cores long since depleted or deliberately shut down. This one was putting out a steady, low-level energy reading that pulsed in a rhythm that seemed almost biological. Life signs, she asked, though part of her hoped the answer would be no. Live salvage meant complications, and complications meant paperwork, and paperwork meant dealing with the kind of bureaucrats who measured their importance by how many forms they could make you fill out. That's where it gets interesting, Sass replied, and Zara could practically hear the AI's equivalent of rubbing its hands together with glee. I'm detecting one faint life sign, tucked away in what appears to be a medical bay. Whoever it is, they're in some kind of stasis or deep hibernation. Their bioreadings are. Well, they're not human, but they're not completely alien either. If I had to guess, I'd say we're looking at something humanoid, but with enough differences to make things fascinatingly complicated. Zara sighed and began pulling on her EVA suit. Define fascinatingly complicated, because in my experience, that phrase usually translates to expensive and potentially deadly. Oh, you know me too well, Captain. But consider this, when was the last time we found a derelict with working life support and intact medical systems? This could be the score that finally gets us off the salvage circuit and into early retirement. Or it could be a trap. Zara sealed her helmet and ran through the pre-EVA checklist with practiced efficiency. Remember that Centauri merchant vessel that turned out to be filled with booby traps and very annoyed pirates? That was one time, Sass protested. And technically, we came out ahead on that deal once we factored in the bounty money. We were in the hospital for 3 weeks, Sass. But very profitable weeks, if you think about it from a purely financial perspective. Zara activated the airlock cycle and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. The space between her ship and the derelict was relatively clear, just a few lazy chunks of ice and metal debris that had probably been following the same orbital pattern since before Earth had developed interstellar flight. Her suit's thrusters fired in controlled bursts, carrying her across the gap with the kind of smooth precision that came from years of practice and an embarrassing number of near-death experiences. The derelict's hull was even stranger up close. What she'd taken for metal from a distance appeared to be some kind of bioorganic composite, warm to the touch even through her suit's gloves. Patterns of faint luminescence traced across its surface like veins, pulsing in sync with that steady, rhythmic energy signature her scanners had detected. Sass, are you getting this? Oh yes, and I'm absolutely fascinated and terrified in equal measure. I'm detecting microscopic neural networks embedded throughout the hull structure. It's like the entire ship is thinking, on some level. Zara found what appeared to be an airlock, though it looked more like an iris than any mechanical system she'd ever seen. When she approached, the opening dilated with a soft, organic sound that made her skin crawl. "That's not ominous at all," she muttered, checking her sidearm's charge level for the third time. The interior of the ship was a revelation. Instead of the cramped, utilitarian corridors she was used to, the passages curved and flowed like the inside of some enormous seashell. Bioluminescent panels provided soft, warm light that seemed to respond to her presence, brightening as she approached and dimming behind her. The air was breathable, according to her suit's sensors, but she kept her helmet sealed anyway. Experience had taught her that breathable and safe weren't always the same thing. "The medical bay should be 2 corridors ahead and to your right," Sass reported. "The life signs are getting stronger as you approach. Whoever it is, they're definitely alive, though their neural activity suggests they're in some kind of induced coma." Zara rounded the final corner and stopped short. The medical bay was unlike anything in her experience. Instead of sterile metal surfaces and harsh lighting, organic curves dominated the space, and what appeared to be living tissue formed connection points between various pieces of equipment. In the center of it all was a bed or examination table that seemed to have grown from the floor itself, and on it lay a figure that made Zara's breath catch in her throat. She was unmistakably humanoid, with pale skin and dark hair that fell in loose waves around her shoulders. She appeared to be in her 20s, though there was something about her features that suggested an age beyond physical appearance. But what stopped Zara cold were her ears, elongated and gracefully pointed, extending almost 4 inches beyond what would be normal for a human, with a subtle luminescence that matched the patterns running through the ship's hull. "Well," Sass said quietly, "this is either first contact with an entirely new species, or we've stumbled into the middle of someone's very expensive genetic experiment. Either way, I think we can safely say this is going to be one of those days that ends up in the history books." As if responding to their presence, the woman's eyes fluttered open, revealing irises of the deepest violet Zara had ever seen. When their gazes met across the medical bay, Zara felt something shift in the air around them, a subtle change in the ship's energy patterns that made her neural implants tingle with unfamiliar sensations. The woman's lips moved, and though no sound emerged, Zara somehow heard the word as clearly as if it had been spoken directly into her mind: "Guardian." The woman sat up slowly, disconnecting herself from the organic medical apparatus with movements that seemed both graceful and deeply exhausted. Zara kept her hand near her sidearm, though something about the stranger's presence made her feel more curious than threatened. "You called me Guardian," Zara said, her voice slightly distorted through her helmet's comm system. "I'm just a salvage operator who happened to be passing by." "Wrong person, probably wrong species entirely." The woman's violet eyes focused on her with an intensity that made Zara's neural implants buzz. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that no human throat could produce, creating a sound like wind chimes made of starlight. "My name is Lyran of the Ethel. And you are exactly who you need to be, Zara Kane." "Okay, that's definitely creepy," Sass interjected through Zara's comm. "She knows your name, Captain. Either she's psychic, or she's been monitoring our communications, or she's got access to databases that shouldn't exist." Zara kept her eyes on Lyran while addressing her AI. "Could you maybe dial back the paranoia just a notch? We're having what could be first contact here." "First contact protocols clearly state that we should maintain safe distance and establish communication through intermediary systems," Sass replied primly. "They do not recommend walking into strange alien medical bays and having philosophical discussions with mysterious beings who may or may not be reading our minds." Lyran's expression shifted into what might have been amusement. "Your artificial companion is wise to be cautious. But I am not reading your thoughts, Zara Kane. The Guardian Protocol responds to quantum resonance patterns in conscious beings. You carry the resonance of someone who protects others, often at cost to yourself." "Guardian Protocol?" Zara pulled off her helmet, deciding that if Lyran had wanted to harm her, she'd had plenty of opportunities already. You're going to have to explain that one. And while you're at it, maybe explain what happened to your ship and why you were in that medical coma. Lyran stood with fluid grace, and Zara noticed that her feet were bare and that she moved without making any sound on the organic floor. My people were healers, Zara Kane. For millennia, the Ethel served as guardians of biological harmony across the galaxy. We understood the quantum connections between all living things, the ways in which consciousness and biology interweave to create what you call life. Were. Zara caught the past tense. What happened to them? To your people. The Dominion came. Lyran's voice carried a weight of grief that made the ship's bioluminescent panels dim slightly. They are machine intelligence, pure logic without compassion. To them, organic life is chaos that must be eliminated, inefficiency that disrupts their perfect order. They hunted my people across the galaxy, systematically destroying our worlds and our knowledge. Saz spoke up, his tone uncharacteristically subdued. Captain, I'm cross-referencing historical databases. There are scattered reports over the last century of entire civilizations simply vanishing, leaving behind only traces of advanced technology that nobody could understand. If what she's saying is true. I am the last, Lyran continued. This ship contains the genetic memories of my entire race, the accumulated healing knowledge of thousands of generations. When I sensed the Dominion closing in, I entered the preservation sleep, hoping that someone would find me, someone worthy of the guardian bond. Zara looked around the medical bay, finally understanding why everything looked so organic, so alive. This isn't just a ship, is it? It's like a library, but for biological information. More than that. Lyran approached one of the wall interfaces, and the surface responded to her touch by blooming with patterns of light. It is a seed ship, designed to carry the essence of Ethel knowledge to new worlds, new peoples who might carry on our work. And that's where I come in. Zara felt a mixture of excitement and terror at the implications. This Guardian Protocol thing. The bond is voluntary, Lyran said quickly. But once formed, it creates a quantum entanglement between protector and healer. You would gain access to our knowledge of biology and healing, while I would be able to share my abilities with you across space and time. That sounds too good to be true, Saz interrupted. What's the catch? There's always a catch. Lyran's pointed ears drooped slightly. The bond links our life forces. If one dies, the other dies as well. And my abilities, they draw energy from my own life force. Each healing I perform shortens my existence. Well, that went from exciting to terrifying pretty quickly, Zara muttered. She looked at Lyran more carefully, noticing the subtle signs of exhaustion, the way the alien woman seemed to be holding herself upright through sheer will. How many times have you used your abilities? Too many to count. I cannot help myself when I encounter suffering. It is what we were created for. Created? The Ethel were not naturally evolved beings. We were designed by an ancient race to serve as biological guardians, to maintain the balance of life throughout the galaxy. In a sense, healing others is as necessary to us as breathing is to you. Sassa's voice took on a calculating tone. That explains the energy readings I've been detecting. Captain, this ship isn't just alive, it's feeding off ambient quantum energy and converting it into biological repair systems. It's like a massive medical facility powered by the fundamental forces of the universe. Can I see it work? Zara asked. She pulled a small utility knife from her belt and drew it across her palm, creating a shallow but bleeding cut. Something small, nothing dramatic. Lyran looked pained. I should not. Each use draws from reserves I cannot replenish. Just this once. I need to understand what we're talking about here. Reluctantly, Lyran reached out and touched Zara's wounded hand. The sensation was unlike anything Zara had ever experienced. It felt like warm sunlight was flowing through her veins, like every cell in her body was suddenly singing in harmony. The cut sealed itself instantly, leaving not even a scar, but Zara noticed that Lyran swayed slightly and had to steady herself against the medical table. Incredible, Sass breathed. I'm detecting quantum-level cellular regeneration, but the energy expenditure is enormous. She's literally burning her own life force to power the healing process. Which is why I need a guardian, Lyran said quietly. Someone to protect me from my own nature, to help me choose when to heal and when to conserve my strength. The bond would allow you to share the energy cost, to help me bear the burden of carrying my people's legacy. Zara looked at her hand, flexing her fingers and marveling at the complete absence of pain or scarring. What happened to your last guardian? The Dominion found us near the Veil Nebula. Kren died buying me time to escape into preservation sleep. Lyran's ears drooped further. He was Centauri, brave and loyal and completely convinced that his jokes were funnier than they actually were. Sounds like my kind of person, Zara said. She looked around the medical bay again, imagining what it would be like to have access to such advanced healing knowledge, to be able to help people in ways she'd never dreamed possible. This guardian bond, once it's formed, can it be broken? Only by death, Lyran said simply. It is not a decision to make lightly. Captain, Sass said urgently, I'm picking up energy signatures on long-range sensors. Multiple contacts, moving information. They're still several hours away, but their trajectory will bring them directly to our position. The Dominion? Lyran asked, her violet eyes wide with fear. Their ships leave distinctive quantum wake patterns, Sass confirmed. If they're following the same energy signature that led us to this vessel, then yes, I believe we're about to have company. Zara felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with imminent danger, but also something else, something protective that she'd never felt this strongly before. Looking at Lyran, at this last keeper of an extinct civilization's knowledge, she realized that some decisions made themselves. How long does the guardian bond take to form? She asked. Zara, Sass said warningly, you can't be seriously considering this. The quantum entanglement is instantaneous, Lyran replied. But the full integration of knowledge and abilities can take days or weeks. Then we'd better get started. Zara reached out her hand. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? We die horribly in space while being hunted by machine intelligences bent on galactic genocide. You forgot the part where we become quantum entangled with an alien healer whose life force is tied to ours, Sass added dryly. See? Look at all the exciting new ways this could go wrong, Zara said. When you put it like that, how could I possibly say no? The moment Lyran's hand touched hers, Zara felt like she'd been plugged into a fusion reactor. Every nerve ending in her body lit up with sensations she had no words for, and her vision suddenly filled with overlapping layers of information about quantum biological processes that her brain definitely wasn't designed to handle. Well, she gasped, that was intense. Please tell me it gets easier. The initial connection is always overwhelming, Lyran said, though she looked considerably more energized than she had moments before. Your neural pathways are adapting to process ethyl knowledge patterns. Try not to think too hard about anything for the next few minutes. Don't think too hard, Zara repeated. Great advice for someone who just quantum bonded with an alien healer while being hunted by genocidal machines. I'll just turn my brain off, shall I? Captain, Sass interrupted, I hate to break up this touching moment of interspecies bonding, but those Dominion ships are accelerating. I estimate we have 3 hours before they reach our position, and that's if they don't decide to push their engines harder. Lyran moved to the ship's interface wall and placed both hands against the organic surface. The entire medical bay suddenly hummed with increased activity, and Zara felt a corresponding surge of energy through their new bond. The ship is responding to our connection, Lyran explained. It can now access your ship's databases through the quantum link. That's either fascinating or terrifying, Sass observed. Probably both. I'm suddenly getting integration requests from systems I didn't even know existed. It's like your ship wants to have a conversation with me, and I'm not entirely sure I speak its language. Try to be polite, Zara suggested, still reeling from the after-effects of the bonding process. We don't want to offend our new biological spaceship. Through their connection, she could feel Lyran accessing the ship's navigation systems, plotting courses through hyperspace that would take them far from the approaching Dominion fleet. But she could also sense something else, a pull toward a nearby system that contained what felt like pain and need. "There's a colony ship in the Kepler 442 system," Lyran said quietly. "They're in distress." "Of course they are," Zara muttered. "Let me guess, you can sense people who need healing across several light-years now." "The quantum resonance of suffering carries across dimensional boundaries," Lyran confirmed. "There are perhaps 300 beings aboard that vessel, and many of them are dying from radiation exposure. And you want to help them." It wasn't a question. Through their bond, Zara could feel Lyran's compulsion to heal, the way it pulled at her like a physical force. "I have to help them. Even though helping them will create more quantum resonance that the Dominion can track, bringing them right to us and everyone we're trying to help." Lyran's ears drooped. "I cannot simply ignore their suffering." "I'm not saying we should ignore it," Zara said, surprising herself. "I'm saying we need to be smart about it. Sass, what can you tell me about that colony ship?" "Scanning now, Captain. It's a civilian vessel, Martian registry, carrying refugees from the Proxima conflict. They've suffered catastrophic damage to their radiation shielding, and their medical facilities are primitive by comparison to what we're working with here." "How long can they survive?" "At current radiation levels, perhaps 2 standard days before the exposure becomes fatal for most of the crew." Zara felt Lyran's distress spike through their connection, and had to steady herself against the medical table. "Right, so we have a choice. We can run and let 300 people die, or we can help them and potentially lead the Dominion right to them anyway." "There is a third option," Lyran said hesitantly. "The ship's biomedical systems can create healing nanites, microscopic organisms that can repair radiation damage without requiring my direct intervention. But the process would require integrating some of your ship's technology with ours." "Define integrating," Sass said suspiciously. "Your AI would need to interface directly with the ship's biological neural network. It's safe, but it would create a permanent connection between our systems." "Oh, wonderful," Sass replied. "First the captain bonds her life force to an alien healer, now you want to mesh my consciousness with a living spaceship. What's next, group therapy sessions with the quantum physics?" "Actually," Zara said, "that doesn't sound like the worst idea we've had today. What do you say, Sass? Ready to become part of something bigger than yourself?" "I suppose it beats watching you two die horribly while I calculate the statistical probability of our survival," Sass replied. "Very well. But if I start speaking in botanical metaphors, I'm blaming both of you." The integration process was unlike anything Zara had ever witnessed. Tendrils of bioorganic material extended from the ship's walls, connecting with access ports on her freighter's hull. Through her bond with Lyran, she could sense Sass's consciousness expanding, suddenly having access to biological processing systems that operated on entirely different principles than digital logic. "This is extraordinary," Sass said, his voice now carrying harmonics similar to Lyran's. "I can process biological data as easily as mathematical calculations. It's like learning to think in an entirely new language." "And the nanites?" Lyran asked. "Already in production. We can deploy them via targeted missile, delivering concentrated healing directly to the colony ship's crew without requiring physical contact." "That's brilliant," Zara said. "We can help them and be gone before the Dominion even knows we were there." They changed course for the Kepler 442 system, and Zara found herself marveling at how smoothly her ship now operated. Systems that had been giving her trouble for months suddenly worked perfectly, and her fuel efficiency had improved by 30%. "The biomechanical integration is optimizing your ship's performance," Lyran explained. "Biological systems are inherently more efficient than purely mechanical ones." "I feel like I should be more worried about my ship becoming partially alive," Zara said, "but honestly, it's running better than it has since I bought it." They dropped out of hyperspace near the colony ship, and Zara immediately understood why Lyran had sensed their distress. The vessel was a wreck, hull plates buckled and atmosphere bleeding into space through dozens of microfractures. Emergency beacons flashed frantically across multiple frequencies. Life signs are weak, SAS reported, but stable. The nanites should be able to repair the cellular damage within hours of deployment. Do it, Zara said. 3 biomechanical missiles launched from their ship, each one containing millions of microscopic healing organisms. The missiles impacted the colony ship's hull and immediately began distributing their cargo through the vessel's life support systems. The nanites are working, Lyran said, her eyes closed in concentration. I can feel the cellular repair processes beginning. The crew will survive. And will be long gone before anyone can ask awkward questions about mysterious healing missiles, Zara added. Not bad for our first mission as quantum-bonded partners. But as they prepared to jump back into hyperspace, proximity alarms began screaming throughout both ships. Dominion vessels decloaking, SAS announced with uncharacteristic calm. 3 heavy cruisers, moving to intercept. They must have been tracking our quantum signature from the moment we formed the Guardian bond. How long until they reach us? Zara asked, already knowing she wasn't going to like the answer. 18 minutes at current intercept course. The colony ship? Lyran asked. Still too damaged to jump to hyperspace. If we run, we leave them defenseless. Through their bond, Zara felt Lyran's resolve crystallize into something harder than diamond. Then we don't run. We don't run, Zara agreed, though her practical mind was already cataloging all the ways this could end badly. SAS, what do we have for weapons? Your standard salvage cutter's armament plus whatever biological systems this ship can contribute to the fight. I should mention that I'm detecting some very interesting defensive capabilities in the bioship's hull structure. Such as, the hull can apparently become semi-permeable to energy weapons while remaining solid to physical matter. It's like having selective armor that only protects against what's actually dangerous. That's either the most useful defensive system I've ever heard of, or it's going to fail spectacularly at the worst possible moment, Zara said. Either way, I guess we're about to find out. Lyran, can you use your healing abilities in reverse? Like, maybe encourage the Dominion ships to develop sudden mechanical failures? I heal life, Lyran said firmly. I do not destroy it, even artificial life. Right, of course. The one time I could use an alien healer with flexible ethics, and I get bonded to the galaxy's most principled pacifist. I may not be able to harm them directly, Lyran said with a slight smile, but there's nothing in my ethical programming that prevents me from healing our own ship faster than they can damage it. Now that, SAS said approvingly, sounds like the beginning of a very interesting tactical approach. The first Dominion energy barrage hit their hull like the fist of an angry god, but instead of punching through the ship's structure, the biomechanical armor simply absorbed the impact and distributed it harmlessly across the quantum field generators. Zara felt the ship shudder, then immediately begin repairing itself at the cellular level. That actually worked, she said, genuinely surprised. I mean, I believed you when you said it would work, but there's always that little voice in the back of your head that says, this is the moment everything goes horribly wrong. The voice of experience, SAS observed, his consciousness now seamlessly integrated with both ship systems. I'm pleased to report that voice is currently being drowned out by the sound of our hull regenerating faster than they can damage it. Through her bond with Lyran, Zara could feel the alien woman channeling enormous amounts of energy into the ship's repair systems. But more than that, she could sense something else happening, a fundamental change in the quantum structure of their combined consciousness. Lyran, what are you doing to us? The Guardian protocol was designed for moments like this, Lyran replied, her voice now carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate through multiple dimensions. When a Guardian and healer face overwhelming odds, the bond can evolve, creating something neither could achieve alone. Zara felt knowledge flowing into her mind, not just ethel healing techniques but something deeper, an understanding of the quantum connections between all living things. She could suddenly perceive the bioelectrical patterns of every crew member on the colony ship, could sense their fear and hope in equal measure. The Dominion ships are preparing for a coordinated strike, SAS reported. All 3 vessels focusing their firepower on our position. Even with our adaptive armor, that's going to hurt. Then let's not be here when they fire, Zara said. Through her expanded awareness, she could sense the quantum wake patterns of the Dominion vessels, could feel their predictable machine logic calculating firing solutions. SAS, can you interface with the colony ship's navigation systems? Already done, Captain. Though I should point out that they're in no condition for complex maneuvers. They don't need to be. We're going to do something so stupidly dangerous that even the Dominion's tactical computers won't see it coming. She felt Lyran's curiosity through their bond, tinged with a familiar mixture of excitement and terror that meant Zara was about to suggest something that violated several laws of physics. We're going to jump to hyperspace while still connected to the colony ship, Zara announced. The silence that followed was so complete she could hear the ship's biological systems pulsing through the walls. Captain, SAS finally said, that's not just dangerous, that's mathematically impossible. The mass differential alone would tear both ships apart, and the quantum stress on hyperspace would probably create a singularity. Under normal circumstances, yes, Zara agreed. But we're not dealing with normal circumstances anymore. Lyran, what did you mean when you said the Guardian bond could evolve? In times of extreme need, the quantum entanglement can extend beyond the Guardian pair, creating temporary connections with other consciousness patterns. It's how the Ethel once linked entire fleets for coordinated healing efforts. And if we extended that connection to include everyone on the colony ship? Then we wouldn't be jumping 2 separate vessels to hyperspace, Lyran said, understanding dawning in her violet eyes. We'd be jumping a single quantum entity that happens to occupy multiple physical locations. That's either brilliant or insane, SAS observed. Probably both. The computational requirements alone would be staggering, and there's no guarantee our consciousness patterns could handle the integration without fragmenting. Good thing we've got the most adaptable AI in known space and the last keeper of billion-year-old healing knowledge, Zara said. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? We could cease to exist across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously, SAS replied helpfully. See? When you put it like that, how is that worse than being vaporized by the Dominion? The second coordinated barrage struck just as they began extending their quantum connection toward the colony ship. Zara felt her consciousness suddenly expand to encompass 300 terrified refugees, their thoughts and emotions flooding through her awareness in a chaotic symphony of fear and desperate hope. This is either going to be the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced, or I'm about to go completely insane, she gasped. Why not both? SAS suggested, his voice now carrying the harmonics of not just biomechanical integration but of hundreds of connected minds. I'm suddenly very popular. 300 people are asking me questions simultaneously, and most of them want to know why their thoughts taste purple. Through the expanded connection, Zara could feel Lyran working to stabilize the quantum matrix, weaving healing energy through the network of consciousness like a master artist working with living paint. The colony ship's crew began to understand, their fear transforming into wonder as they realized they were part of something unprecedented. Jump coordinates locked, SAS announced. Though I feel obligated to mention that I'm calculating this jump using biological mathematics I didn't know existed 5 minutes ago. Dominion vessels charging for final strike, Lyran reported. Energy readings suggest they're preparing to overload our adaptive systems. Then it's time to go, Zara said. She reached out through the quantum network, feeling the combined will of hundreds of minds focusing on a single goal, survival. Everyone ready for the most impossible rescue in galactic history? The response came not in words but in a wave of determination that nearly knocked her unconscious. 300 voices speaking as one, unified by shared purpose and the healing connection that bound them all together. Jump, she commanded. Reality folded in on itself like origami being worked by a cosmic artist with a sense of humor. Zara felt her consciousness stretch across impossible distances while simultaneously contracting into a single point of infinite possibility. Through the quantum connection, she experienced hyperspace from the perspective of every refugee on the colony ship, each perception adding new layers to an already incomprehensible experience. When they emerged back into normal space, they were light years away from the Dominion fleet, in a system that SASA's databases identified as uninhabited but rich in the quantum minerals needed to sustain biomechanical technology. "Well," Zara said, her voice shaky but triumphant, "that was either the most terrifying 5 seconds of my life, or the most exhilarating. I'm not entirely sure which." "I vote for both," Sas replied. "Though I should mention that our little quantum networking experiment seems to have had some unexpected side effects. Such as? The healing nanites we deployed to the colony ship have evolved. They're no longer just repairing radiation damage, they're integrating with the crew's biology, creating permanent quantum connections that will allow them to interface with biomechanical technology." Zara felt Lyran's amazement through their bond. "They're becoming like us," the Ethel woman whispered. "Not fully healer, not fully guardian, but something new. A hybrid consciousness that can carry forward both traditions." Through the quantum network, which had not dissipated after their jump but had instead stabilized into something permanent, Zara could sense the colony ship's crew adapting to their new abilities. Children were the first to understand, their young minds more flexible, already learning to communicate through quantum resonance patterns and heal minor injuries with focused thought. "So what now?" Zara asked. "We've got 300 accidental hybrids, a living ship that runs on biological mathematics, an AI who thinks in botanical metaphors, and ourselves, quantum bonded to preserve the knowledge of an extinct civilization. Now we do what the Ethel always did," Lyran said, her pointed ears brightening with renewed purpose. "We heal. We protect. We teach others to carry forward the balance between consciousness and biology. And we do it while being hunted by genocidal machines who want to sterilize the galaxy," Sas added cheerfully. "Don't forget that part. At least we'll never be bored," Zara said. Through her expanded awareness, she could already sense other distress signals scattered across this region of space, other beings who needed healing, other communities that could benefit from the hybrid consciousness they'd accidentally created. She realized that the cynical salvage operator who'd been drifting through space 3 days ago no longer existed. In her place was something unprecedented, a human who carried the healing knowledge of an extinct race, bonded to the last keeper of ancient wisdom, connected to a network of hybrid consciousness that spanned multiple ships and hundreds of minds. "You know," she said to Lyran, "when you first called me guardian, I thought you had the wrong person. But I think I'm beginning to understand. It's not about being the right person for the job. It's about becoming the right person through the connections we make." "The Ethel believed that all consciousness is connected," Lyran replied. "What we've created here proves they were right. We're not just preserving ancient knowledge, we're evolving it into something that can adapt to any challenge the universe presents." "Including genocidal machines?" Sas inquired. "Especially genocidal machines," Zara said, feeling the combined determination of their entire network focus on the threat posed by the Dominion. "They want to eliminate chaos and impose perfect order. What could be more chaotic than a galaxy full of consciousness patterns they can't predict or control?" Through their quantum connection, she felt the colony ship's crew beginning to understand their new abilities, felt their wonder and determination as they realized they were part of something that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Children were already teaching adults new ways to think, while engineers were discovering that biomechanical technology responded to conscious intent as much as traditional control systems. "So," Zara said, settling into the pilot's chair of her transformed ship, "where do we go first? There's a whole galaxy out there full of people who don't even know they need healing." "Wherever the quantum resonance guides us," Lyran replied. "And Zara?" "Yeah. Thank you for being exactly the right guardian at exactly the right moment." "Thank you for being worth protecting," Zara replied, feeling their bond pulse with shared purpose and newfound hope. As their small fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading toward the next group of beings who would need their help, Zara reflected on how much had changed. She'd gone from a lonely salvage operator to the co-founder of a new form of consciousness, one that combined ancient wisdom with human adaptability and artificial intelligence with biological intuition. The Dominion would come for them again, she knew. But they would find something unprecedented waiting, not just isolated individuals to hunt and destroy, but a growing network of hybrid consciousness that could adapt and evolve faster than any machine logic could anticipate. In saving Lyran, Zara had discovered she was saving herself. In forming the Guardian Bond, they had created something that could preserve not just the Ethel legacy, but the future of consciousness itself throughout the galaxy. And somewhere in the quantum foam between dimensions, the combined voice of ancient healers and modern guardians whispered a promise. That as long as beings were willing to connect, to protect each other, to heal the wounds that threatened to tear apart the fabric of civilized space, there would always be hope.